Almost Machining, welcome aboard. Machinist Guru, welcome aboard. You guys are flying in here today. Thanks for being here. C. Archibald, welcome. Kylo, welcome aboard. Yeah, we're back in town. Hey Chris, welcome. Indiana John, welcome. It's good to be back in the shop. How's everybody doing today? I got back in town last night around 11 p.m. after a long drive. Well, it wasn't that long, but 6-hour drive. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. From New Jersey. So we got to part of running around in New Jersey this past week. Went past the base, the Air Force base, where is my audio okay? Somebody tell me if my audio is okay. Wannabe Machinist, good morning. It's not morning, it's afternoon, sorry. Is my audio okay? Almost Machining, you scared me there. Okay, all right, fair enough. So we saw the, I've seen them from above when I was flying, but we saw the blimp hangars from the car as we're driving by, and it was most impressive. If you ever want to see a seriously big building, it's amazing. So we'll give it a few more minutes as people show up before we get into things. Hope everybody is happy and healthy and making stuff. As some of you, probably all of you know, I was on family business down in New Jersey. My dad passed away last week after, I won't say an illness, but after declining in health over a fairly long period of time. And it was very peaceful, and he was a craftsman, and I know I talked about him in the last live, and he loved this stuff. He absolutely loved it. I used to tell him about the work I was doing in the shop, the work I was doing up in the up, meaning up in my antenna business. Hey, thanks, Dan. I appreciate it. Yeah, he loved hearing about the Stones and the development, and the success, and people enjoying the tools. And he was always thinking, and he was always saying, I think I got an idea for your Stones. So that was kind of cool. Yeah. So he went peacefully, and we said goodbye to him on Pearl Harbor Day, December 7th. And I had to laugh, Dad made it efficient, right? Efficient to remember the date. And he was all about efficiency, so he was a great guy. So one day I'll get a bio up so you guys can read it. He was an RF engineer. What a shock that I became, an RF engineer. But the thing that was pretty neat is that we shared RF engineering as a, hey Adam, good virtual morning. we shared, Dad and I shared, antennas and radio communications and RF stuff. And that was sort of a shared thing. And then, you know, the machine shop stuff, of course, was new to both of us, because I was learning it as I went and inventing what I had to invent. And then when I got into the PFG Stones, this was like, you know, new territory for me, new territory for him. It was kind of cool. So anyway, yeah, we had family in, and you know, I don't know if you know the traditions, but when a Jewish person passes away, you there's a period of time called sitting Shiva, which is where my mom will accept visitors. You know, basically the doors open, and so we were doing that, and we started eating. Everybody that showed up, you know, one person would show up and they'd bring cookies for 20 people. Now that ratio did not stop, so I was eating all week, and it was okay. That was okay. That's how you do it. I also had some stuff that I haven't had up here. Good pickles, good deli, and now I'm back. So that's what's going on. And thanks for all the kind words that you guys have sent. I appreciate it. So let's see, what else is going on? So in other shop news, you know, I showed up last night, haven't done anything. Everything is sitting right where I left it when I walked out the door 2 weeks ago. I don't even remember. It's a blur. So we're catching up today. The plan is to do inventory, to update the spreadsheet, to check orders. The orders didn't stop, so we have to do some serious catch up this week. And there'll be many hours of grinding ahead of me, which I'm very happy for and very honored to serve. So that's coming up. Also, the Form 3 resin printer showed up. So that's sitting on the floor right inside the door. And that's got to make its way down to the basement, figure out which table it's going to get set up on, and start getting that set up. So there'll be some, you know, we'll have some stuff to share about resin printing, and in particular the Form 3 resin printer, which I'm very excited about. So that's a whole new can of worms. So that'll be neat. And if you guys have any questions about that, yeah, I'm sure you have some stories to tell me. So this is a Form 3. This is the latest, and I've heard all. You know, I actually remember when the Form 1 came out. I think I saw it at. I want to say I saw it at East Tech. I think I saw it before that, and I can't remember where. It wasn't down at MIT, but yeah. So we're up to the third generation, and I'm sure Dan, we could talk about that, and I want to hear. Yeah. So Dan says the Form 2s are both great and awful. So I get it. I've heard a lot about the Form 2s, and who is it? Yeah. Well, the new printers are very interesting. I don't want to dive into the technical details, but yeah, we'll share some notes. And I did buy the sort of the pro package where I have a hey, Proteum Machining, welcome aboard. I bought the pro package where we have extra training, you know, hotline, blah blah blah. I figured that was a worthy investment, especially for new technology. So trust me, if anything weird happens, those guys are going to hear about it in a hurry. And seeing as if we bisected the distance between me and you, Dan, we land right on their office. You're getting 3 Form 3s for next semester, and you've heard they fixed a lot of bugs, but the sensors will not sense the tray, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So It's okay. You could rant. This is a good place to rant. Yeah, we'll talk. But I went down there. I was in their face before I placed the order, and believe me, if I have any issues or successes, I'm open. I'm not saying anything's going to crash and burn, but I'll be in their face. They picked the right guy, and believe me, if it's a win, I will crow about it, and everybody will hear about how good it is. So that's coming, completely new to resin printing. All I know is videos and reading, so it should be kind of neat. And I'm sure somebody's going to ask me why did I get a resin printer? But mostly for engineering, prototyping, and for learning. Really, it was one of those purchases. It's really easy to spend money on a piece of equipment when you have something to do with it. Like this grinder right here has been, hit the ground running, and it's been earning its keep right out of the gate. So that's an easy justification. Whereas the resin printer it's kind of as John Saunders would say, a preparatory purchase. So we'll see. But I'm excited about that. So stick around. We'll keep you guys posted on the Form 3. And that's all I've got to say about that. So in another interesting communications, I got a nice email from a customer who said, "Hey, do I need the B200 balancing rings?" So I sell the balancing rings. I'll show you. Can I get a newer one here? Anybody? Newer one? Yeah. So I sell these B200 balancing rings. They go right on the Sopco Model 0200 hub, which is what that is. Okay. And they're wonderful, and I use these to balance all my wheels, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. So he was confused because he said he looked at the Sopco catalog, and the hub that he was looking at had balancing weights, and he was confused. And I said, send me the exact order numbers. So to make a long story short, he was looking at what they call, and this is a little confusing, it's my fault, the B0200 hub, which does have these rotable balancing weights. And he said to me, "Oh, I figured it out. There's the 0200 Sopco hub, and there's the B0200 Sopco hub." And I said to him, if you buy the one with the balancing weights on it from Sopco, you do not need to buy my balancing ring because you have means to balance it. So then he got back to me. He says, I figured it out that the price difference for the B0200 from Sopco is $250. He says, "I'll be buying your rings." I said, "Thank you very much." So my rings are just under $50, I think. And it was pretty funny. But he's now a happy customer. In fact, that's one of the shipments I got to do today or tomorrow morning. So that was pretty funny. So there was a little confusion. But what did I do? I said to him, "Give me a sentence that you wish was in my product information page." So he wrote a sentence. I edited a little bit, and I added a little, frills around it, and it's been added to the product information page, and that's how I like to do it for all, for the PFG stones, for the balancing rings, soon for the balancing stand, is to respond to any questions with making sure the answers to those questions are now added to the product information page, maybe forestalling future questions. And so far, that's been a pretty good process. So I thought you'd get a kick out of that. Do those fit 1.2 inch diameter hubs? And what's the TPI? So here it is. If you go to rin.gg, that's like ring, right? rin.gg, that's a web page. You can get all of the answers to your questions, Indiana John. But the short answer is it fits over the hub. Hang on. Yeah, here it is. So, all right. So that's the Sopco. That's the Sopco adapter. The term of art in grinding is adapter for interesting reasons. It's not called a hub, but that is a 1 1/4 inch diameter adapter, and there's your taper, and you see this boss right here. So my balancing ring fits right over that boss, okay, and then it's held on with a set screw there, and then these are your weights, which are set screws, and it's 3 points of contact. So you see my bumps, there's a bump there, and there's a bump there, and then the set screw is the third bump, and it makes a 3-jaw chuck, basically. And that goes on that hub. And then when you do your balancing on your balancing arbor and your balancing stand, you add your weights into these holes, which are simply set screws, 1/4 20 set screws. And that's how it works. So this was, I didn't intend to do a commercial or a training session on balancing rings, but there you go. And they work the shizzle. I know because I was the first customer and I'm still using them. In fact, here, I'll show you. This is one advantage of actually working at your broadcasting from the workbench. There's one of the earliest prototypes. Why not 6? 6-jaw chucks are better. Because I only wanted 1 set screw. So, in line with your point, Dan, so this is one of the early prototypes. Now you'll notice that there's no bumps. It's a sliding fit. Well, I learned pretty early on that the problem with that is when I went to put it on a nicer hub. Oh yeah, almost machining. I want to talk more about that. So hold that thought. So when I went to put this on another hub, it didn't fit because the boss in the Sopco part had a tolerance and it was fat. So I went to scratch my head and I said, well, how do we solve that problem? And that was the germ of the idea for making the bumps. And it did a few things. It made it more tolerant of variations in the Sopco part because they have tolerances just like the rest of us. But it also reduced distortion. Everything is pasta, right? So when you go to tighten that thing up, you're distorting, and ultimately you're distorting the taper. You don't want to do that. So if you have a perfectly round hole in the middle and a set screw, no matter how close fit or whatever you want to think about, it's a 2-point contact, right? So you're going to squeeze your round taper into an oval. Nobody wants that. When you go to 2 bumps and a set screw, you now have a 3-jaw chuck. 3 is better than 2. Okay? So now you have much less distortion when you go to put that on. And you don't have to crank down on it. And to further Dan's point, why don't you have 6? Would love to have 6, but it's hard to do. So the 3 points of contact was really a skookum improvement on that part. It just works great. Welcome aboard, Treatment NL. Is that Netherlands? Range Bar, welcome. So that was a story on that. And then who said it? I want to give him credit. Yeah. Almost Machining said, much nicer than drilling out the side of a wheel. So if you look at, I think I did a video on the origins of the balancing wheel. I can't quite remember. But the origins were when I was figuring out how to balance things and I saw videos online about drilling holes in the side of the wheel. It didn't make any sense to me. We're so careful. We ring our wheels. We mount them with blotter paper to make sure that the stresses are distributed. You know, we start spinning them up at 3,600 RPM. And so we want to make sure everything's just right. And then how do you balance it? You drill holes on the side of the wheel. It didn't make any sense. So that was also one of the, that was the prime motivation for designing what I designed. And it turned out to be a great tool. And I've sold many. So the biggest thing about drilling holes in the side of your wheel versus using my balancing rings with the set screws is you can remove the balancing ring from the wheel to check something if you want to check your balance, and you put it right back. You can't do that if you drilled a hole in your wheel. And if you drilled a hole in your wheel that you really wish you hadn't drilled, what do you do? I mean, any answer to that is probably kind of iffy. So that's where it all came from. So stay balanced. RIN.GG is the product information page. Now, the balancing stand is still not released yet, but that's coming. And yeah, I have a few novel ideas that are implemented in the balancing stand, which is pretty skookum cool. And I don't want to tease it, but it's coming. So that's the balancing stand issue in the B200 balancing ring story. So left on my plate is catching up. So this week I just have to catch up on production and shipping, and that starts actually as soon as we hang up. That's what happens next, is getting caught up on that. My son is going to help me with getting stuff sorted out in the shop. And then also on my priority list is bevels. So a number of people have asked me about beveled stones, and I have a solution. In fact, I'm looking at my jig right there. So we got to get started. The last step on the bevels is a little bit of programming that has to be sorted out. And then a little bit of, good afternoon, bud. A little bit of programming and a little bit of a time study so that I can make sure I get the pricing right. And the way we're going to do it is basically for every bevel you want to add to a stone, there's going to be, we'll price it. It'll just be another thing you add to the order. And I know I have Uchel out in California, Woods Creek Workshop on YouTube. He's patiently waiting. Plus my buddy in Brooklyn, he knows who he is. He's patiently waiting, and we'll get to bevels. So bevels are coming. And if you look over here, I'm going to show you something here. See right there? So I have a camera up on a mag mount, and that camera is staring at the grinder. Oh, yes, Dan, gotcha. So Dan is waiting for bevels also. So that camera, get you that camera again. That white camera right there watches the grinder, and that lets me do a couple things. During production, I can watch the grinder while I'm eating dinner. That's the beauty of CNC. But also, I'm able to do time studies on which include the human factor. So loading, unloading, grinding. So when I do the bevels, I'm going to do a time study on the bevels. And that's how I do it, is by looking at not only do I take notes, I have my notebook right here, but I can go back and watch the videos and make sure that I'm doing. Hey, Dan, welcome aboard. Almost Machining says, have I considered fixturing? Yes, I actually cobbled up a fixture for the bevels out of, I have a sine plate and a grinding vise. So you're taking a stone which has already been ground flat and parallel, so you can put it in a grinding vise gently. Hey neighbor, GLG Knife Works is with us, and that's the first fixture, and we'll let it evolve from there. So yeah, I consider fixturing every day. It's a challenge, but that's how we'll start with the bevels. And the other important point is that the percentage of orders that are going to ask for bevels is a small, a relatively small fraction of the orders. So you have to weigh developing, super sexy fixturing to do bevels versus an expedient, repeatable, dedicated, but simple fixture. So another way to say that is, if I can grab one stone and do a bevel, should I be grabbing, 4 stones at a time to do bevels? And the answer to that is, I don't think so. I don't think the equations work out. So, but good point, because that's always an issue. I'm very happy with my my current setup for doing the basic grinding. I developed my own fixturing and my own work holding for that. But for the bevels, we'll start off. Well, here, I'll show it to you. I'm staring at it as if you can see it, but let me turn the camera around. I think I showed this a couple of weeks ago, but it's pretty simple. Now, the interesting thing is, I looked at some sine vices, and what's interesting is, notice how the fixed jaw is up high on the sine plate. Well, all of the sine vices have the fixed jaw low on it's near the pivot, I should say. So here's the pivot, and there's the fixed jaw. So this is opposite from what your typical sine vice is, and you don't realize that until you start messing around. And then I started shopping around. I realized, this is actually superior to purchasing a sine vice, because it would put the fixed jaw down here, which is problematic. Another thing, a DRO for angles. Well, everything's possible. I could make a DRO, but I don't think I need it. And this gauge right here, that's a 45-degree gauge to set the sine plate, or the sine plate. Okay, 3.5355 inches, and yes, it is. But actually, we're going to be doing 40 degrees, so it's this plus another piece. Yeah, Indiana Jones points out. Indiana Jones. I fell right into your trap. Indiana John points out that there are digital levels. Yeah, I could always throw a digital guy up here, but I'm literally just using a gauge to set it. So we're going for a 40 degree bevel. That lets you do a stone of 45 degree dovetail, and gives you a little clearance. So this is working out really well. And I was considering, this is a shop-made vise, by the way, that I bought on eBay. I'm considering knocking off this corner, and it'll make it even a little bit nicer, but I don't think it's going to be super critical. So that's our development work for the bevels. One stone was already sent out to Warren Jones up in north of me. And Warren's been using the bevel stone, and he said it rocks, so to speak. So we're very happy about that. So yeah, it's programming. It's always a software problem. The hardware is always perfect. It's a software problem. So we're working on that. All right, Dan, I'll let you know. I'll let everybody know when I'm ready to take orders on those. Oh, BFD. Sorry, buddy. I don't know why. I have no control why it's booting you off. But it's not me. I am not booting you off. I think you're okay, so don't worry about it. But you didn't miss anything critical. And you could review the video later. So that's the story on Bevels. I think you're pretty up to date. I've been totally out of pocket for like 2 weeks, so I don't know what's going on. Yeah, so Dan says he's been currently flattening stones on a diamond plate that he found from a tribology lab clean out. I love lab cleanouts, which works, but I can't really make a bevel. Yeah, we'll take care of you, buddy. We'll take care of you. And one of these days, I'll come down and see you. Maybe I'll deliver it. All I need is a room number. You know that. Okay. GLG Knifeworks says that he has an idea for me and will send drawings. It is a company policy only to receive drawings in person over food. So that's the only way I can accept those. Okay, so BFD is actually receiving our live today via telegraph. I think that's the problem. 35-112. All right, well, I'll write it down, but you'll have to tell me again later anyway. 35. I know exactly where that is. Banana bread is acceptable. John, we never go hungry, do we? All right, so questions. It's questions time. Let's fire them out. And I'm watching the little, if you're on an iPhone and you got the question button down there, that's the best way to do it. But if you don't have the little question button at the bottom, you can put it in chat. So far, our volume has not been so much that we can't capture you. So while I'm doing this, I'll tell you that my sister is a marine biologist, and one of the things that she's been doing over the years is CAT scans of fish. So I keep telling her to get me some 3D data of a fish head, and we're going to try on the Form Labs. We're going to try to make a fish head. If she comes through with the data, we'll do it. It'll be fun. Okay, it's your time. Questions. If we don't know the answer, we'll find out. We'll find somebody who knows the answer, and if we can't find somebody who knows the answer, we will, in fact, make it up. Any questions? Might be an early day. I'll have a sip of tea while you guys think. So I came home with a bunch of bamboo fly rods. My dad was getting into building, repairing, modifying fly rods, and for fly fishing. And those are the ones, Chris. So I'm seeking people with expertise in fly rods. If you or somebody you know is an expert in that area, please drop me a line. Okay, so I'm going to take these out of order. Somebody submitted one to the doobly-doo, but I'm going to answer Dan first. Do I have a recommendation for an epoxy for attaching stones to a shaft? I do not. I have not done this, but I will take it under advisement. Okay, John, hang on. So, one of my favorite epoxies is DP190 from 3M. Yeah, Adam the Machinist correctly points out that you can already buy them attached. So you can buy stones on a shaft, which is a remarkable coincidence because I played bass for Stones on a shaft back in the 80s. You could buy stones on a shaft for sure, but you could also buy stones with a 1/4 inch hole in them. So I don't have a definite recommendation, but I would reach for a filled epoxy that has a little bit of compliance to it, so it doesn't build stress in. Dan says a researcher just brought in some diamond coated hole saw bits to drill out some ceramics, and they were awful. Basically 1 bit per hole. That's too bad. I wonder, were they interrupted, or was it a continuous hole saw? Because from what I know, epoxy diamond grit to the hole saw. I'm going to go with no on that one. So the usual way they do that is they attach the diamond grit with a brazing compound. They literally braze them on. Yeah. Almost says glass beads as well. Need to be sure you don't squeeze out all of the glue, right? Continuous with 2 slits. Yeah, I would want more slits to get, because when you're drilling the ceramic, you're generating a lot of swarf, and you're going to want it wet, big flush, and I think more slits for the swarf to go. All right, let's pull up this question that was stuck in. Okay, 2 good questions in the queue. Indiana John says, I'm realizing I need to get a coolant set up for my grinder. Any recommendations on that? So, okay, Chris, we'll take that under advisement. Chris played bass for more slits back in the 80s. I'm going to let that one go. Let me see if I can. It's too far away. I did it again. Electroplate the grit onto a mandrel. Yes. Actually, I have some custom-made diamond tools. I'll bring them down for next time. That were made for me, and they were. They might have been electroplated, or hammer the abrasive in. So Adam, I don't know. I think this is a little rough for that. This is not fine work. I think I kind of know the guy. I think I know what the guys are doing, and I think this is sort of rough work. So, recommendations for coolant setup for your grinder, coming from Indiana John. So yes, my first and best recommendation is flood cooling. There's nothing like a flood coolant to not only do its job as a coolant, but to flush out the grinding products. Now, you might imagine when I do stones, the velocity of the swarf is kind of low. So it's really important to wash that stuff out as best you can. Whereas when you're grinding steel, you can see the sparks, the steel tends to move out of the way quicker. But in any event, flood is numero uno. But the Noga Mini Cool, I'm gonna reach for it. Let me see if I can grab this. I'm gonna move you guys down a little bit, and I'm gonna grab my Mini Cool for show and tell. Okay, we averted disaster, but not by much. So this was my first coolant system on the grinder. So there it is. Air goes in there. That was my coolant tank, cool mist
77. I think I switched to 78. They're not too different. And this guy is the pickup for the coolant. And then there's your schnozzle. And you can adjust the air coolant mixture. John. So, and there's your on-off valve. And that's it. And you can set that up. This was my first coolant system on the Harrig manual grinder, and it works great. I did all sorts of stuff with this. In fact, I did stones with this, as long as you keep it really, really wet. So if you have a manual machine and you do not have any coolant system at all, go get yourself a Noga Mini Cool. Noga. And it works the shizzle. Does that answer your question there, Indiana John? Oh, I have to get the voice right here. I can't do it. No coolant you have. Mighty the Swarf is with you. Mighty the Swarf. Oh my God. You're a sick puppy. Okay. So, Noga Mini Cool. Almost says, I built a coolant guard and use a $20 Harbor Freight water pump and a bucket for flood and a Noga-like spray. Great. Some coolant is better than no coolant. And flood coolant is better than mist coolant, in my humble opinion. Now, if your issue is literally cooling, like you're doing steels, there are some steels that burn very easily, then the mist is actually pretty cool. Pretty cool. The mist works really well for cooling, per se. Not as good at flushing all the stuff out. But thermally, it will work a treat. And I've experienced that. So now, of course, on the Okamoto, I've got 30 gallons of coolant to maintain. With a continuous filter, I've got an additional 5-micron filter before the schnozzle. I've got the schnozzle, and it's a recirculating system, and it works awesomely well. I hope that does it. The second question was, do I use programming software for anything, or is it all brain power? Brain power. It's all on the control. I have not used any external software. Now, you can, of course, use Fusion 360. You need to build a post for the machine, because I can almost guarantee that there's no post that exists for this machine. And you can do it. But honestly, I've done... So there's 3 levels of programming on the Okamoto. So just tell me one thing, BFD, is your question limited to the grinder, or are you asking in general? Please tell me that, because I'll answer for the grinder, but if you're asking in general, I'll clarify. So the grinder has 3 levels of programming. The first one they call semi-automatic. They call it semi-automatic. And it behaves just like... they try to make it behave just like the old grinders that had, you want to know both, okay, that had the big panels that had a million switches, so that on the grinder, I'll swing you around here, you know, you've got these knobs mostly on the right and a little bit of screen interaction, and that behaves just like days of yore. And that's how you would set up a grind, and that works fine. And it's not as versatile. And then the next thing they have is called full auto mode. And in full auto mode, you could set up a whole bunch of grinds. You could set up like over 30 grinds, and then you could say to the machine, I want you to run numbers, 1 through 10, and it will literally go and grind over here and grind over here, or it'll do 10 different grinds, and each grind can have a coarse, medium, and fine stage. You get lots more flexibility. They call that full auto. And then finally, you have G-code programming, because that's a Fanuc control. So you can go, and I've done it. So part of my training, aluminum mode is next. Okay, we'll talk about that. Part of my training, I insisted that that I figure out how to write a G-code program. So the G-code programming was actually necessary for doing rotary grinding. So if I had the spin jig going and I was doing a cylindrical part, that is anyway, that's how it's done. You have to write a G-code program. So we did that also. Artificial intelligence mode. I got it. Yeah, AI mode. I come downstairs, just tell the machine what I want, and I leave. That would scare me a little bit. So on the grinder, it's all done on the control so far, or it's G-code but written by hand. No CAM software. And then let's see. Can I do that? Guess not. And then you wanted to know about the rest of the shop. So in the rest of the shop, on the Haas TL1 lathe, I have a post for Fusion 360. I could write in Fusion 360, but honestly, I think it's fair to say 90% of what I need to get done on the lathe, I've been able to get done with so-called conversational programming. Haas is cool because when you use their conversational, it literally writes G-code and lets you see it and edit it. So it's pretty cool. So I have done Fusion 360 programming of the Haas TL1. And then all the way in the back, my Sharp VMC, absolutely. Fusion 360, go to a post, which I've modified. And John Saunders has been doing some great videos on modifying your posts in Fusion 360. So that's all Fusion 360 programming. But I've also stood at the machine. Again, it's a Fanuc control. I stood at the machine in the most horrible way and banged in a G-code programming, out of my head, which for simple stuff, I need to make a hole or 2 holes or something. It's super easy. So those are all the CNC machines. I hope I answered your question, BFD, which, there you go. Okay, what time is it? 1:48. We have time for more questions. Thank you. Thank you, bud. The other funny thing is that the Sharp, while you're thinking of your questions, the Sharp Fanuc control has a PCM CIA card slot in which I have an adapter to a flash card, and that's how data gets in and out of that machine. The exact same thing is happening on the grinder control. I have a flash card, and that's how we save data, backup data, and that kind of thing. So while I'm talking about that, I should point out that backing up your machine data is really important. The grinder has battery backup, the Sharp has battery backup, the Haas has battery backup. So we're on a strict schedule of annual battery changes on everything. It's like a makeshift DNC. It's actually, so the Sharp only has 2
it's either 256K or 512K. No, it's not 512. I think it's 256 kilobytes of G-code capacity, which is actually usually enough. But if I have some big surfacing program, which I almost never have, I could put that on a 1 gigabyte flash card in the adapter, put that in the machine. You do go to DNC mode, and in their weird way of thinking about things, it is like DNC from the card, and I can do huge programs. You lose the ability to do sub-program calls, I think, but that's not the issue. If the issue is you need tons of memory to do some surfacing, you can still do it. Okay? All right. So, 51 minutes after the hour, last questions, and then we'll start to wrap things up here. It's a beautiful day here in New Hampshire. It's actually warm and sunny, and any snow that has fallen around my house is gone. And it's green. It's weird. It's December 12th. It doesn't look like December 12th. All right. Well, thanks for being there. This was fun. It's almost like back to normal. So when we shut down here, I got to go do inventory. Yeah, Fanuc is its own thing, but because I knew Fanuc from the Sharp, having the Fanuc on the grinder is actually pretty nice. And yeah, the Haas. So the Haas has a USB. Use a USB stick. It's pretty straightforward, and the Haas has a ton more memory to start with. So. But again, you don't end up doing, at least I don't end up doing anything super complicated on the lathe. So that hasn't been an issue. But on the Sharp, I have occasionally needed to do a drip feed from the card, or DNC from the card, or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. I understand, man. Okay, absent any further questions, we're going to wrap this up. This almost feels like I'm back to normal. We'll be, if you're waiting on stones, those are either in inventory and going out tomorrow morning, or they're getting produced this week, and they'll go out hopefully by the end of the week. And then, of course, I have a backlog of work upstairs also, so it's going to be a couple of busy weeks here. So thank you all for being here. Appreciate it. Feel free to DM me if you have questions. I'll do my best. If I can't answer it, I'll tell you I can't answer it. So happy Sunday. Do something cool in the shop. Enjoy it. If you're doing work for someone else, do good work. And enjoy the rest of your weekend. Take care, everyone. Ciao.